Hi, and welcome to the tnkgrl Mobile Podcast. This is, let's see, what day is it? It's Friday, September 19th, 2014. Yay. And I have a very, very special guest. It's a bit of a reunion podcast today. Brad Mullen is here with me. Hi, Brad. How's it going?
Hi. It's good to be here, Miriam. I miss doing podcasts with you.
Ah, me too. And that's kind of why I thought, with this plethora of phones that just got announced at IFA, and then on top of that, just to top it all off, like icing on the cake, we got the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus. I figured, who could I ask that has played with most of these, since I have not played with many of these? You, of course. And also, I wanted to kind of gift our audience with a bit of as I said, a bit of a reunion thing. I know that you haven't been able to podcast for a while, so shall we get started?
Yep. Yeah, let's definitely get started. I've been itching to podcast for a while, so this is great.
So let's do this chronologically, and also I wanted to say before we start, I want to apologize to my audience because I did not do a podcast in August, but that's because I spent about 2 weeks in the desert for Burning Man this year. My responsibilities went up in terms of my involvement there, and so I spent a lot of time, and it just wasn't going to happen to do a podcast. So anyway, forgive me, we're back.
It's a shame because I think it would be awesome to have you do a Burning Man podcast.
I'm going to try next year.
Like a burn cast.
This year, I'm going to try that next year. I think next year I'm going to be in charge of the technical aspects and part of the cafe potentially.
Ooh.
So that means I might be able to hook it up and get it try doing it, because I'm not sure we'll get good video out of it, but at least we can get audio.
Right.
We'll see. No promises, but I love the idea too. It's crossed my mind. I want you to know. So,
good.
First phone on. I had a list. Where did I put my freaking list?
It's in the inbox somewhere. Was it the IFA stuff?
Yeah, first with IFA. What was the first? So you rushed down to IFA.
Yes.
In Berlin, down up sideways to Berlin, and what happened then? What's the first event you went to where you thought there was a phone we should talk about?
I would say the first event that is worth talking about is Samsung.
Okay, yeah, right.
So, because IFA is traditionally the Samsung show. At least it has been since 2011, back when the Note was first announced.
The Samsung show.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because it's the only show that Samsung consistently launches the same product over and over again. They don't even do that at Mobile World Congress, although they came back this year for the GS5. But this time they did the Note 4, and they also introduced the Note 4, or sorry, not the Note 4 Edge, the Note Edge, which, it's hard to say which one is more interesting because both of them have some very awesome qualities that I'm very intrigued by. The Note 4, for example, is the first mainstream Samsung device that we've seen in a very long time. I can't even remember when the last time it was, but that they actually incorporated metal into the device. You know how excited I am
about this? Just so you know, I have played with the Note 4 and Note Edge. I did play with them at CTIA last week in Las Vegas, and so I can talk a little more about them. But yes, you're right. Continue. This is good. Metal, yeah. And it's a bit of metal, but it makes all the difference, doesn't it?
Right. It's the one thing that you and I have been complaining about for years. Like Samsung they have so much potential to make awesome products, but they gloss over it with this plastic, and I don't. Right. And a lot of people get on our case, right? That we just seem to be metal fanboys and fangirls, but it's not necessarily all about that because, as you know, Microsoft devices make some really good polycarbonate.
Oh, don't say that. Oh, my heart.
We'll stay true to Nokia for now. But they have a habit of making really good, solid polycarbonate. So it is possible to do. It's just Samsung has never been able to reproduce the same kind of quality with their plastic materials. Yeah. So for them to come out with at least, I would say maybe a hybrid model where you're coming out with the aluminum sides, and then the back you have as like a solid plastic material, just the leather-like back as they've been doing. They got rid of the stitches this time around, which I think was a very good choice on their end. So there's a lot of things that I'm really excited about. It really does feel like a good, solid phone for the first time in a very long time.
So my takeaways are this. There are 3 things that Samsung's done recently that I think are awesome. The Galaxy Alpha, the Note 4, and the Note Edge. And it's not just about the metal. I'll tell you, first of all, what concerns me, the only kind of snarky bit that I want to add to that is that, come on, Samsung knew, I mean, there were enough leaks about the iPhone 6 that we knew it was going to be obviously metal, and that it was going to be, well, mostly metal, and it was going to be 2 sizes, 4.7 to 5.5 inches, and boom, what do? Galaxy Alpha and Galaxy Note, both with metal edges and chamfered edges, right? Like, I mean, so I think the Alpha is certainly in a class of its own. I think I really can't wait to get my hands on one. They didn't have it at CTIA. I was there with Ina at the time in the booth. And I actually saw, a bunch of the awesome PR folks from Samsung. It was great. And we asked them, we're like, hey, can we get our hands on an Alpha? And they're like, no, sorry, we don't have it. It's not going to be a U.S. product. And I'm like, but it's a Canadian product. That's close enough. I'm Canadian and I'm saying that. Come on. So, no. But I think the Alpha is definitely, like, really refined in terms of the pictures I've seen. Because, I mean, on the Note 4, it doesn't really seem that obvious that there's metal. Like, you see the edge, but you think this could be plastic. You're not sure. It feels much nicer. When you start touching it, you go, okay, it makes sense. But with the Alpha, it's clearly, like, okay, we're going in that territory, like the HTC One iPhone territory.
Yeah, the Alpha is a gorgeous phone.
But unfortunately, it's a little flawed, right? Because in terms of picture, like, the camera is downgraded, the battery is really small, it's not the fastest processor, etc. So I think it's not really a competitor to the 4.7. And it was interesting, Vlad, our good friend, made an argument that he said that they should do a Note 4 Mini that would compete directly with the iPhone 6 with the 4.7-inch screen. That would have the same specs as the Note without the stylus, presumably. But I don't know. I mean, all I know is this. I played with them briefly at CTIA, both tethered to their stand, but also because I saw, Philip Byrne, for example, was there, and he was awesome. He gave me the actual Edge and 4 to hold in my hand without, like, a tether.
Without the cables. Yeah.
Right, and it felt finally like Samsung's back in terms of material. It's not just that the metal edge; it's the plastic quality of the backing that is still removable the normal way, which I thought was a very clever and interesting approach. And just overall, it looks and feels like a Note 3 that's been just refined in terms of build quality and materials. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that, because the Note 3 is definitely one of my favorite phones of last year. So.
Right. This is just taking the Note 3 and improving on all the pain points.
And honestly, you put that Note 4 next to a Galaxy S5, and as I've been saying for a while, the Galaxy S5 just looks so cheap and nasty in comparison. It's just like night and day. It alarms me that they don't really have a flagship lined up in the fall anymore. I mean, obviously the Note is their fall flagship, but to me, it's a big phone, right? Some people might want something a little more reasonably sized, but right now, like, honestly, if you see the Note 4, there's no way on Earth you're going to buy Galaxy S5 after that. Like,
yes, but the Galaxy S6, I can see it taking on the same exact design language, because that's what Samsung does, right? They have the same design language for about a year, and then they just completely change.
But that's obviously next year, right? And I mean, like, for the holidays, what are you going to do? So anyway, let's talk about, because we have 1 hour, I just want to move on, and I want to talk about the Edge and about the OIS on the Note camera, because those are the 2 things that I thought, like, the materials, obviously we've talked about. OIS on the camera, finally Samsung made a non-Galaxy phone, Galaxy camera phone, like the Galaxy camera or the K-Zoom or the S4 Zoom last year, and not grafting a point and shoot onto the back of an Android device. Finally made a regular phone that had OIS, and that was... Finally, there's another reason why I think the Note 4 is a killer, right? Because even if you don't get the Edge, and it looks like the Edge is not going to be out for a while, it's going to be really expensive when it's out. But OIS, it's interesting to me, and we're going to talk about this a lot with the iPhone, that both Apple and Samsung have capitalized, and I mean capitalized as in they've given up, they've agreed that OIS is a must-have feature. This tells me this reinforces everything I've always said about optical image stabilization. And you're going to say, when does it matter? Because it's not used most of the time. I'm like, yes, it's not used most of the time. It's not useful most of the time. It's only really used and useful when you do low light shots of things that aren't moving.
Yeah.
And but that happens a lot.
That they can get.
And that happens a lot. And why not have that? And it's interesting to me. I don't know. You possibly played with this Galaxy Note 4, but I didn't play with it enough to try this. But I
didn't either.
On most of the phones with OIS, especially the Nokias, it really kicks in a meaningful way outside of photography and video recording, right?
Right.
It really helps stabilize video recording. So I'm wondering if the Note, because with the HTC One M7, which had OIS, the video stabilization on that OIS wasn't that great. So so I'm wondering what level of OIS they're using and whether they're using it for video in a significant way. We know that Apple is obviously using a much fancier software algorithm to do video stabilization that is unbelievable from what I've seen. But so again, I don't want to dismiss the fact that you can do stabilization digitally, but I think for still photography in low light, OIS is still king, and I'm really happy to see Samsung and also Apple go in that direction. What's your take?
Well, I think they have to, because what are they going to do? Are they just going to keep going up in megapixel count? Because I think at some point that's a lost cause. So
Right.
Do you really need more than 16 megapixels at this point? I would say
I think
no.
you don't need more than 8. I think Apple's got it right.
Yeah, I mean, that certainly could be argued. But, I mean, where Samsung currently is, it's not like they need to continue on to the Sony or Nokia levels where they get up to 21 or 40.
Oh, yeah. I agree.
Like, I guess you could. I just think that's pointless. Whereas if you go with something like OIS, that's a much more genuine feature that people will find useful.
Yeah,
So,
and I actually think it'd be really cool if the manufacturers give you the option to turn it off, so that you in low light can decide. Like, I really want that long exposure feel, because OIS naturally increases the exposure time, and so you get the nice streaks when the cars go by and all that stuff. Some people don't want that, right? They're maybe trying to take a subject that's moving, but they don't want to fire the flash, and they want to set. And this again, where manual controls I think really matter. And you weren't on the podcast for a few episodes, so you haven't probably heard this, but I talked with Nicole Scott once quite extensively about the whole problem with some of the new camera apps having no manual controls. I mean, like I'm not talking about Apple, who's keeps improving their camera to keep it simple to use for the average person, but still is giving us the new features like the exposure up and down on the screen thing that they just launched with iOS 8.
yeah.
But I'm talking about like the G3, for example. Phenomenal camera. I used the G3 more than any phone, and I had a Lumia with me at Burning Man because it performed better, and this is crazy. But I was so frustrated that I couldn't set anything manually. And you're going to say, well, third-party apps, but the third-party apps are just not as they don't seem to handle the features of the hardware as well. Pro Camera, which I use, kept crashing on my G3 after a few pictures. It would still take the shot. The last shot wouldn't be lost, but it would just like freeze my phone up and piss me off. So
Yeah.
So I'm glad HTC's been doing manual controls. I have a Butterfly 2 here that I want to talk about, which is like an HTC M8, but instead of a 4 megapixel ultra pixel, it's a 13 megapixel without OIS, but with a much better sensor that's what in the previous 13 megapixels from HTC, and it works. It validates my theory that an 8 or 13 megapixel camera, potentially with OIS, is a better choice than even a 4 megapixel ultra pixel camera. So, I don't know. It's like manual controls. I want to see more of that. I really do. I think Nokia's got it, HTC's got it, and I want to see that from Samsung. Well, Samsung has always had buried in the menu a bunch of manual controls, but shutter speed is becoming a critical part of the equation. If you look at how good the camera is on the iPhone 6, like you're like, okay, we've gotten to the point where the point and shoot is, a lot of people have been saying the point and shoot is obsolete, but really nobody's been able to deliver that except for maybe Nokia. And now I think we're getting there in a serious way.
Yeah, I think the challenge is finding a way to balance minimalism with the extra features, right? Because, like you were saying, how Apple keeps everything simple just mainly because most people don't care to dive into all these extra manual features. But at the same time, you need to make sure that they are available to everybody who wants them. So it's finding that delicate balance. You don't want to make the UI too noisy. Like I think Samsung has some potential here because they, like you were saying, they go really deep into the menu, but there are ways to bring it out as shortcuts and put it in the little sidebar. And I think if you have the opportunity to put some of those manual controls into the sidebar, that's a much better option. Take the Lumia camera, for example. Like that is my absolute favorite user interface for a stock camera because
I agree.
You got easy to manage sliders, but yet you don't even it doesn't get in the way. So if you don't want to use all those extra features, you don't even know that they're there. All you have to do is just slide over from the shutter button over to the left, and boom, you've got all the camera controls that you want.
I love that we said boom at the same time. Boom!
No, that was a huge explosion.
So hey, before we switch to talking about the Lumias, because I want to talk about the new Lumias that were announced, and also about my experience with the 930 at Burning Man, which sadly was a little disappointing. But anyway, let's talk about the Edge, because the Edge, I have to say that Samsung, I know it's, like, I'm not going to say, I don't want to judge here whether this is a useful feature or not, because the verdict is still out. I mean, it could be useful, like for example, having the camera controls on the Edge totally sold me.
Yeah.
But I agree that it could be seen as a gimmick. But one of the things we can't argue about at all is that, technically speaking, from an engineering point of view, holy crap! Like, this is a tour de force from Samsung to finally not just show this at CES like they did a few years back, but actually manufacture a mainstream device with a display that, you know, falls off on the Edge.
That's a very good point. I was very impressed by this. We saw this as the prototype back at CES 2013, and they just showed it off for a couple seconds. We didn't get to see much more of it, but I was actually quite surprised to see Samsung put this kind of mainstream effort into it. I figured that when it first came out, it would be a very small niche thing that would probably not even make it out of Korea, kind of like the Galaxy Round was.
Yeah.
But it sounds like Samsung has a lot of bigger plans for the Note Edge.
They do, and I think, you know, I want them. This is what I want them to continue to see. They are the only company with Apple out there that has the kind of money to throw stuff and see how it lands. And they haven't really been throwing good stuff lately, you know. and so this is good. To me, this is good because it really pushes the envelope, and perhaps somebody will find some good use for it. And I'm glad they offered the developers an opportunity to, you know, to take advantage of this feature in some way. I'm telling you right now, I'm probably going to get a Note 4 first because they'll be out sooner.
Yeah.
But I am really looking forward to get a Note Edge.
Yeah, me too. Just mainly for the functionality standpoint.
Just to see if it's a valid thing in terms of usage. I understand it's a valid thing in terms of engineering. Like, you've done it, it works, it's there. Wow. But like, it doesn't make my life better in any way. I don't know.
Exactly. Well, that's what they did with the Galaxy Round, right? Like, they came out with this. The screen it's curved. Hey, okay, that's cool. But what can I do with it? The answer was nothing. Like, when I played with that thing, it was basically a Note 3 just with a curved screen.
You know what we need? We need like gang signs for like the Galaxy Round and the LG Flex, because you know they're like, it's like you know, they're the two opposing gangs, right? It's like like
a West Side Story of curved screens going on.
I was thinking West Side Story and it wasn't popping out of my head. Exactly, yeah. I've got the Flex. Oh, you've got the Round. Oh, I'm gonna hunt you down. Now let's sing.
We like curved screens in America. We like curved screens in America.
We like a screen in America. There you go. See? Get it. Back to the good old days, Brad. Back to the good old days.
Oh, it's good to be back. So,
right?
But here, okay, so couple things about the Note Edge. One is, in terms of the functionality, I think they realized, well, if we're going to do something cool with the new screen, well, let's actually make it useful. And I could see a lot of cool uses coming out of this. Like, it's still a very narrow strip of screen space. So like they had this thing where you could customize the bar, so it's just like one of your pictures from the photo gallery. I thought that was kind of dumb because
Yeah,
you,
I saw
you
that.
see like a little sliver of your face, and that's about it. Not that great, but
Sliver face.
yeah,
There's a new insult for someone. Sliver face.
you just got a sliver of a face. So the thing is, though, you got little things like night clock and the tickers and notifications, which I could find really, really useful, especially when the rest of the phone display is turned off, and just have that show up.
Yeah.
So, like, if it's on my bedside table, I can just look over and I can see the time. I can see any new emails coming in, and do I really need to get up from bed and respond to these? So
For me, like with the 2 minutes I spent with it, the thing that really stuck out was the camera interface with most of the controls on the edge, and the row of icons for multitasking on the edge.
right.
That really led to me like, okay, I get this. My main screen isn't cluttered by this stuff, and my viewfinder is nice and clear, and I don't have to worry about not lining up my subjects and because I got a big camera button in the way or something. That I thought was cool. So again, unless you want to add more, I'd like to move on to the Nokias.
Yeah, the only thing I want to add to that is the only thing that I really didn't love about the Note Edge was how wide and sharp it was.
Oh yeah, it's gonna cut your hands off and fingers off.
But I mean, how else are they going to do it without making it even thicker, or just I don't know. But they'll figure that out with sequels, I'm sure.
I'm sure that what we saw were really pre-production units too. It's possible that the final version they'll machine the metal a little bit differently, so it's a little rounder. Because that's, to me, I think was the most obvious part. And I have to say, I found some variability in the ones I played with on the show floor. So that tells me they're not quite there yet.
Good point.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's talk Lumia. I want to talk very briefly about what is it, 830 and 730 that they announced?
Yes. The selfie phone and the
right. So before we start,
flagship.
I want to share a bit of a disappointment story. Last year, as you know, I took the 1020 to Burning Man with me, and I also took the Galaxy S4 Zoom, which is really basically a point and shoot, a low-end point and shoot, but nonetheless. And I have to say the takeaway at the time was, oh my God, the Lumia is incredible. The only thing that it can't do is zoom as much as the Galaxy, and get the same resolution when it zooms as much, because you really get 5-megapixel shots, but it had the better display, and overall for the size, and it just worked. And the zoom had the advantage, even though the display sucked in bright daylight, having a physical zoom that still gave you 16 or 20 megapixel, whatever it is, I think 16 shots, was nice. And most importantly, it showed in real time when you changed the shutter speed, the brightness in manual mode, which was really like, if your photographer really made it feel right. This year I couldn't get a K-Zoom. Sadly, Samsung US doesn't have those to play with for us, and I just didn't feel like spending $700 on Agree to buy one. Honestly, I'm reserving my $700 to buy the Panasonic CM1.
Okay.
I've decided that this is the camera phone for me. I'm going to spend the money on that one, I think. But anyway, we can talk about that guy. But I don't know if you even know what I'm talking about. It was announced at Photokina this week, I guess. And it's it's a Panasonic Lumix, basically a Leica lens with a 1-inch sensor in a phone that's as flat as a 1020. But it's a full-blown Snapdragon 801 1080p 4.7-inch display.
Interesting. 1080p.
Yeah, 1080p 4.7-inch. It looks like a phone, but then it has that retro camera look in the back. The lens protrudes a little bit, but it's a fixed lens, no zoom, but it's a 1-inch sensor, and it's high-quality Leica lens, so it should be very interesting. It's Android. Anyway. Yeah. CM1 Panasonic, look it up.
I'm still catching up.
So anyway, I digress. But what I was going to with this is that based on my experience with the Lumia, since I didn't have the K-Zoom, I'm like, which phones do I have that I want to take to Burning Man to take my pictures this year? And so I was like, okay, G3 for sure, because I really love the camera. It's got OIS. We need that for low light. Then I said, okay, Lumia 930. I have an icon here on a 930. The 930 is orange. How can I go wrong, right? They're
Right.
the same camera, so I'll take the orange one with me. I don't need the internet or the cell phone part to work, so I don't care about LTE compatibility or anything.
Sure.
So I grabbed the 930, and then I grabbed my iPhone 5S. I grabbed my Nexus 5 just because it's my go-to phone. It does have OIS as well. And then I grabbed the Fire Phone because I have it finally. This is funny. I got my Fire Phone review unit a day before going to Burning Man for 2 weeks. So I set it up, and I was like, you know what? I don't think I want to really test you out there, but you've got an OIS camera that's 13 megapixels. I'm going to take you with me and see what happens.
And if you get a little dirty, it's the Fire Phone.
Right, it's the Fire Phone.
And hey, it's Burning Man Fire Phone.
I know.
Exactly.
Right.
You'd be wrong not to take it with you.
Right. So and you know what? Here's my takeaway of these 4 phones before we get going on the Lumia. So the G3 performed exactly what I expected. Really, really good every time. I wish I had manual control so I could bump down the exposure, the shutter speed, when it was overexposing stuff, which it did a lot, especially at night. In the daytime, it's fantastic, but at night it was a little trying to give me too much light, in fact.
Right.
But that's the gripe I had with Nick. We discussed at length with Nicole, and I think the previous to that podcast. So go back a couple of podcasts. Then there was the Nexus 5, I barely used it. The iPhone 5S, I barely used it. But the iPhone 5S is still my go-to phone for panoramas. Why can't anybody make a phone that takes panoramas as seamlessly and beautifully and as high res, and now even higher res with the iPhone 6, than the iPhone 5, than the iPhones? I don't get it. Like, can we not get a panorama mode that doesn't suck? Because every other panorama mode wants to stitch pictures together.
Yeah.
And the iPhone's the only one that works like a scanner. You know, like zzz, it just scans line by line vertically.
Is that just an iOS thing versus Android and Windows Phone?
I think it's just possible. I know it's not a patented thing because Sony does it with their NEXs. So somebody just needs to implement, and I think maybe Sony does it on their Z phones. And we should talk about the Z3 actually. Anyway, but so finishing quickly, I took not many pictures of Nexus in the iPhone 5S, but then I used the Fire Phone, and very impressed with the Fire Phone camera. Wish there were more controls and more settings.
Sure.
But in low light, OIS, it matched the G3. In fact, in some cases, I got better photos than the G3. So that was surprising to me. I mean, because a lot of people said that it's a good camera but bad. Like, it's, you know, a lot of course on Fire Phone reviews was the dynamic perspective, which I hate. I just turned it off.
Right.
I'm so sick of it. Like, I was sick of it within days, et cetera, et cetera. But the camera I was really quite surprised by. But here's the thing. Here's what's, you'd think the 930 would win, right? You'd think the 930 would be the camera that took the best pictures with at Burning Man. And very vexingly, that is wrong. That is not true, and I'm disappointed. And I don't know what it is, because I remember the Icon doing a much better job than the 930 when I used the Icon at Yosemite, for example, when I went there, even in low light. And I think what it is this. I figured it out about halfway through Burning. Once I had lost a half of my pictures, and I don't mean lost because I deleted them, but lost because I lost the opportunity, because I took the shot and it was shit.
Right.
Once I'd done that for half the pictures I took and gotten really frustrated with the phone, I realized that it can't autofocus to save its life in the dark. And you're going to say, well, there's that autofocus assist light. That doesn't help when you're trying to take a picture of something in the dark that's 100,000 feet away. So what I found is that the Icon somehow has a better algorithm focusing at night, and it could be related to 8.0 versus 8.1. I don't know, because I haven't played with the Icon since 8.1 came to it, so I don't know. So my takeaway is I put it in manual focus mode, and boom, it was manageable. But ultimately, I look at the pictures it took from the same viewpoint and distance and at night in the same conditions compared to the 1020, and the 1020 is just a whole different ballpark. Like, it's a whole different dimension. And that was last year's 1020 software, not the current 8.1 software with whatever improvements they've added in firmware to the camera. So I'm a little bummed because I feel like I've missed, and you'll see when I finally post my pictures on Flickr, I don't have that many photos this year comparatively, because a lot of them were just shit. Like, they were blurry, out of focus, and yeah, very noisy too. Very noisy in low light. Like when you zoom in,
Yeah.
I was like, what is all this noise? Where is it coming from? I don't remember that on the 1520, which is the same camera. I don't remember this on the Icon, so I think it's possibly a early firmware 8.1 problem.
Yeah, it could be, and we'll see how Denon changes that.
I hope so. I'm just bummed because, you know, Burning Man comes and goes, and I just really didn't feel like I got enough of the kind of quality pictures I like to take. But the G3 did save the day a few times. I know there are times literally where I tried to get picture 3 times, and I'd be like, it's not going to work. I'm angry. So I'd pull out the G3 or the Fire phone and take it with that, and lo and behold, it worked.
So do you think the laser focus makes a big difference on the G3?
So yes. That was my takeaway, that in the dark, I can focus on stuff perfectly every time.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult when you have a lot of different subjects at different distances that are close to each other. Like, say you have the man in the background, an art card in front of you, and a person in front of the art card, because the laser is pretty narrow band, right? So it's gonna.
You can't do multiple lasers.
And it's hard for you to point the camera and frame things because you can't really see what you're doing.
Right.
So, you know, I've had a time where I've taken it and it was like, oh, it's perfectly focused on the man. And I turn it a little bit and redo it. Oh, it's perfectly what I wanted, right? It's just, but of course, the point to focus always works. If you can kind of see your subject, you can do it. So that's my takeaway. So now the 830 and the 730. So the 730 selfie phone. The 830 is basically like a baby 930, correct?
Yes, and I actually like the hand holding experience on it a lot better than the 930 or the Icon.
Oh wow! So it's smaller.
Yeah, it's a little bit thinner, maybe a little bit smaller in terms of
what size screen is it?
Oh goodness.
Can't remember. We have to look it up. If you have to look it up, let's not look it up.
I'm pretty sure it's a 5-inch screen, but don't.
Oh wow, that's actually that's the same size as the 930 then.
All right, this is gonna bug me, so I'm looking it up.
You're gonna look it up. It's Snapdragon 800.
Oh goodness.
Let's look it up.
Yeah.
Lumia.
I don't think it's a Snapdragon 800.
There you go.
Now I feel silly, but
don't worry, I got it. It's right here.
Okay.
Thank God for Phone Arena.
Yeah, Snapdragon 400.
Oh yeah, that makes most sense. Quad-core 400.
Yeah. And it's 5-inch 720p display.
Oh, okay, so it's 720p, but it's the same size display as the 930. Interesting that you feel it's better in hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it rounder? Is it a bit rounder in the corners? Is that why? It looks like it from the photos.
I think it's just more because it's still straight edge, but it's not quite as thick. And it's also going to be a little bit lighter as a result.
Yeah. So you know what this look reminds me of a lot in terms of looking at the aesthetics? Kind of a cross between the 930 and the 925. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Cool.
I would say so.
So you thought they were cool? Like you're like, so it's pure view, but it's 10 megapixels. Is that right?
Yeah, it's 10 megapixels. So it's still technically pure view brand. So.
But you can't really zoom that much then.
No. I mean, compared to the 930, of course, it's.
Yeah, but honestly, now that I've played with the 930, you basically get 2 times zoom on the 930, right? And you get the digital negatives, which is nice. You know, the raw support. But the 1020, I think, is the way to go because I'm now that I've put 8.1 on my 1020, I'm kind of liking it again a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's still no Snapdragon 800. They need to come out with a 1020 that has a Snapdragon 800 and a slightly bigger, better screen, and we'll be done.
I'm kind of surprised that they haven't done something like that yet, and I'm wondering if we're going to see something before the end of the year.
It could be a cost thing. I mean, the camera module's got to be expensive.
Yeah.
You know, but we'll see. Anyway, so what about the selfie phone? What do you think? Huh? It has a big camera on the front. What is it, 5 megapixels or something?
Yeah, it's a 5 megapixel camera on the front. So the thing is that there are other phones, even ones that were announced at IFA, that are even a better resolution technically. Right. So like the HTC Desire 820.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Actually.
8 megapixel. So, but I mean, this is the thing, right? This is the trend. Selfie phones are, they're coming all over the place.
They're a thing. They are a thing.
Yeah. So
that alarms me.
It alarms you because of the term selfie phone, or just because selfies are a thing? Like, what about it alarms you?
It alarms me that you can't just hold your phone with the screen facing away from you and take a picture. If you have a wide-angle lens, you're gonna get a decent enough picture.
Yeah, and you
And it
know
also
what?
alarms me that people are selling these arms you mount your freaking phone on.
That's my favorite. Yeah. Um,
But
like,
I'm old and cranky, and I'm gonna complain.
get
These
your
kids
selfie.
these days, kids, get off my lawn, you kids with your selfie phones.
Get your selfie sticks off my lawn.
Seriously.
Um, yeah. So the interesting thing about this is Nokia also came out with um, similar software for the 530 and the 630, where they don't have a front-facing camera, right? So what are they going to do for the selfies? Well, you can certainly still use the rear-facing camera, point it towards you, and they have an audible clue for you to
Speaking of
for you to take a
530,
picture. Yeah. Boom.
there it is. Boom. 530.
Yeah, I've got one lying
Oh my
around
God.
somewhere.
I'm disappointed though. I mean, like I understand it's super affordable, so like 100 euros or less or something, right? It's $100 even. I don't know. It's amazing this thing's running Windows Phone, because like it feels like a real phone, but then you kind of start getting the short end of the stick when you realize there's no autofocus on the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh,
Mm-hmm.
that's like Nokia X crap.
Well,
In that sense, the 520 at least had autofocus. Come on, like no flash I can live without, no front-facing camera I can live without. But what? No autofocus?
yeah. Oh.
But here's the crazy thing. It has manual controls with the camera because it has the Nokia camera. So you can go set the shutter speed on that thing.
Autofocus.
But you can't
That's kind of funny.
focus. Yeah, I probably won't bother doing a video review, but Nokia, my good friends in Finland, send me one. They're like,
Sure.
play with it. So now I have both ends of the spectrum. I have the 930 and the 530.
Yeah. So I think 730, in terms of the demographic they're trying to sell to, the market of people that they're trying to sell to, it makes sense that they would approach this as a selfie phone versus a higher end Lumia or even lower end. Like, it just seems like this is the ideal phone for teenagers and young adults who are really into that kind of thing. So,
Kids
but
these
this is
days.
the next frontier. This is the next megapixel war, right? Is the front-facing.
I say, why not bother? Don't put a camera on the back. Just put a camera in the front. Make it 20 megapixel, and then and then it's the reverse. Once in a while you take a picture where it's not you, and you just kind of randomly try framing it by holding it kind of like randomly and say, did I get that? You know what I'm saying?
Well, my favorite thing, when you looked at the Note 4, did they talk to you about the selfie camera experience on the Note 4?
Thankfully, I think Phil and the PR, the wonderful Samsung PR folks, knew better than to bore me to death. So, no.
Yeah, because here's what it is they understand that wide-angle selfies are a thing, and they couldn't do it just with their physical camera limitations. So what they ended up doing is like a panorama selfie mode. So like you take one picture like this, and then you tilt it the other way, and you tilt it the other way, and then it stitches the three pictures together, and there you have a 120-degree wide-angle selfie picture.
Wow, that's kind of janky. But
I mean, it's clever, but
it's an idea. It's an idea.
It's like when you have to take 3 selfies to get 1 selfie, then that defeats the purpose of the selfie, in my opinion.
Yeah, why don't you just hold your phone, like, let me do an example. Why don't you hold your phone like this, right?
Yeah.
And just go like this. Like, push the button, selfie button, go like, and then it just takes like 500 shots on a photosphere, and it creates one of you.
Just like this.
Yeah, you do this, woo! And then it just takes like that's the universal selfie gang sign. Woo!
Sometimes I might get that shaky with my pictures anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's switch gears to the HTC announcements. Well, there's really only one, right?
Yeah, there's just one.
Desire A20. So it's really interesting to me because I have a Desire A16 and I love it. And so what they've done with the A20 is changed the cosmetics a little bit. It's the same screen. They've put a Snapdragon and a 615, right? Which is the 64-bit
Yeah, it's the
Snapdragon.
64-bit. It's is it 615 or is it
605?
Mhm.
650, 6 something. Nah, fuck. I'll have to look it up.
That's the hard thing. There's too many phones.
There's so many phones. Desire
It's
820.
615. Yeah, you were right.
Yeah, right. Okay. So it's a 64-bit processor, and they've changed it. So here's the thing that I actually checked. I checked in with Jeff because I'm like, wait a minute. You just gave me an 816, and now you have this 820. And I understand the processor and the aesthetic, but the camera has a bit of a bulge. What's going on here? And he says, oh, it's a new 13 megapixel sensor, an improved one. So the Desire 816, which I have here. By the way, I mean, my review's upcoming on my blog, so, you know, there it is. It is i816. Looks like an iPhone 6, sorry, but it's not. It's plastic. But it's very nice. I like it a lot. That phone has a 13 megapixel camera, which is the same module you find on the HTC Mini 2. God, that name. Is it that?
HTC One Mini.
One Mini 2. Oh,
yep.
God. HTC One Mini 2. And it's okay. It's okay. It's low light's a bit limited. But so the 820 has a new sensor, which is inside this phone, the Butterfly 2.
Yep.
So this phone is an M8, essentially made out of plastic. So like the E8, this is what I don't understand. They have the M8, the E8, and the Butterfly 2 now. Mm-hmm. The Butterfly 2 has the dual camera, has the guts of the M8, has plastic body, has the dual speakers, but they're little grills like that, and by the way, it's a beautiful 5-inch 1080p display. Mm-hmm. But the camera, this camera here, is 13 megapixels with the new module from the 820, and no OIS, of course, because of the Duo. And you know what? It's great. It's not OIS, which I really want instead of Duo, but I don't think it suffers in low light compared to the ultra pixels on the 4 megapixel M8. So I have a feeling that we're not going to see another flagship from HTC with the 4 megapixel ultra pixel module.
I sure hope not. It's about time to move on. Like, it was a great idea, but it's time.
So I just got this phone, so I still need to review the 816, so give me a few weeks to get that out there, folks. But I will have it up at some point. What else is new with me? I got the Fire Phone, I told you. It's charging over there. I've got, you know, nothing. You saw the 530. But anyway, did you play with the 820? What's your, you know, what do you think?
With the 830?
No, the
the Desire 820.
16.
My Lumia's
the Desire 60. What is it?
Desire 820.
Jeez.
Yeah, so
that could be a Lumia, right? Lumia 820.
Yeah. My time with the Desire 820 was very limited, just simply because they had it at this event and they were all tethered to cables. They just didn't have any options there to take the cables off. So I didn't really get I didn't get a good full experience with it yet. So we're gonna have to wait until I actually get a review unit in. Yeah, my takeaway on this is it's ultimately an 816. I just like you, I found it kind of odd that this is essentially replacing out the 816 within 6 months.
Yeah,
because it was announced at MWC. So, you know, 6 months later, all of a sudden they have a brand new phone that essentially does the same thing with a few minor improvements.
It has an interesting splash of two-tone color thing going on, though.
Right? Yeah.
That's kind of cool. I like that. The lens highlight. And anyway, I mean, you know what? Whatever. It is what it is. I am glad the Butterfly 2 exists, is all I have to say. You know, I've been a big fan of the Butterfly since the DNA J Butterfly, and then the Butterfly S, and then the Butterfly 2. And I just wish, honestly, that instead of a Duo, it had OIS on the 13 megapixel, and then just, you know, give me a metal chassis like the M8, and we're done, you know? Like, it's not hard, HTC. We just gave you the recipe. Take out the dual camera, add OIS, make it metal, make it for next year. We're done.
Yeah. So what do you think about the 64-bit inside? Because, you know, it's
until Holo or whatever, you know, until Android really supports it, I don't think it's gonna add much. But when it does, it's gonna be, you know, like iOS 7 running on the 5S. It's gonna be more efficient. So I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. Do you think it makes a difference with it being on a 615 versus like an 810? Because I would
Well,
find it more useful if it's on one of the flagship Snapdragons.
yeah, me too. But I think they had to start somewhere. It was this. I think this phone is about we're the first with a 64-bit phone. That's
Hmm.
an Android phone kind of thing, you know. And
Yeah.
somebody had to be the first to use that 615, and they did, you know. And then it was like, oh, it's 64-bit compatible. Let's make a fuss out of that, like Apple did last year. I mean, I honestly look. It doesn't mean anything to the end user.
Right.
Ultimately, if you're buying a phone, don't buy a phone because it's 64-bit compatible. This is ridiculous. Just buy a phone because it works and you're happy with it, and UI is fluid and you're really you love it. Like that phone's not gonna last you more than a year. What do you care? You're gonna buy another phone in a year, right?
As long as you
We're
can play
not
your
this
games on it.
podcast. This podcast is not for people who upgrade their phone every 2 years. Let's face it. So.
Yeah.
I'd say forget about that. Eventually, like within a year or two, all phones will be 64-bit. You won't have to worry about that stuff. So I'm going back to the. We didn't put it in the list, but there's basically three more phones to talk about: the Z3, and then the Moto X, and then the iPhone. So
Oh, yeah.
let's talk about the Z3 and Z3 Compact briefly. I feel like we get the short end of the stick here in the US because the last official, like for me, I can only deal with Sony US in
Yep.
terms of review units. So the only review unit I got was the Z1S, which is, kind
So
of
T-Mobile.
obsolete and old.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I took it to Prague and Barcelona, and it was great.
Mhm.
But Z2 was announced at Mobile Congress when I was there, and then another Z3. And the Z3, from the pictures I saw and the write-ups I saw, really seems to be, yet again, even though it's only been 6 months, right? It's crazy. Another major step forward for them. Well, it's not a major step. It's a refinement, but it feels like a major step because it really feels nice, right?
Absolutely, it does. I mean, granted, I'm still more excited about the compact than I am the Z3.
Well, the compact, of course. Nobody has been able to corner this market yet, other than Sony. Why? I don't understand.
Well, and what I also don't understand is why we don't see Sony products here in the U.S. Of course, the Z3 is going to come to T-Mobile.
But
Are they coming to any other
Z3
carriers?
compact. I want the Z3 compact.
Exactly. Like the compact just does not come, and I think this would be, and this would be a good segue at some point into the to the iPhone 6. But like this is the closest competitor that the iPhone 6 has in terms of what's out there and the kind of specs that are in there.
I agree.
Like it is the only mini flagship phone from any of the Android carriers that is actually really close to the flagship phone. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
you got stuff like the HTC One Mini and the Samsung Galaxy S Minis series. Like they're just crappy versions with a smaller screen. Like they just don't bother with them for some reason. And
Yeah.
to me, that defeats the purpose of a mini phone. Like people want a small screen, but they don't want to compromise on specs. And I think that's what the Z3 does. Is they don't compromise on the specs. The only thing I could say is some sort of compromise is the
Screen
screen.
resolution. Yeah.
But even then, at 4.6 inches, like that's not really an issue. You're not going to be
Right.
fussing about 720p on a 4.6 inch screen. It's just not going to happen.
No, I agree.
So, yeah, but like everything else, there's a little bit less RAM on there than the Z3, but just overall, I'm extremely happy. Just even the fact that the camera is exactly the same, and it's
Yeah.
waterproof, and like there's so many extra little touches.
I think they nailed it on the Z1 compact and then the Z2 compact, now the Z3 compact. I mean, it's just there's no doubt like Sony's got it. The only thing I want to see Sony on your Z4 and Z4 compact is OIS.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
you
that'd
are
be nice,
you
certainly.
are the champion. You make modules that have your OIS. Why don't you give us a phone with it?
That is a good
Forget the
point.
20 megapixels. I don't care about that. I just want OIS.
They're too busy selling it to other companies. They just don't have enough for themselves.
Who knows? They probably have a good reason. But yeah, I mean, delighted. It's too bad we're not going to see these as readily, possibly as other devices. And so
Yeah.
Moto
What I
X.
would love to see is I would love to see Sprint actually carry the compact.
Yeah,
And
cool, right?
you saw this stuff with the sharp
Yeah.
octals. Like now they're
Yeah.
starting to leverage soft.
But they're not getting the Moto X,
Yeah, yeah.
apparently. So it's weird, right? So speaking of Moto X, I haven't played with it. Have you played with it?
I've played with it briefly, but that was the main event took place when I was in IFA in Berlin, so
Right.
I didn't get to spend
You
very
didn't
much
clone
time.
yourself and split yourself in half.
I know I should have. I was thinking about it, and
Right,
it just would
right.
have been too much.
I taught you
So
so many things, but seriously, uh, I think I am waiting for my review note. I've requested one. I'm hoping to get it soon. It
yeah,
seems to me that they've addressed a lot of the issues. For me, the big issue about the Moto X Next last year was nothing. There's very little about it I didn't like. I just felt it was overpriced for what you were getting. I felt that for the processor performance and the 720p screen, you weren't getting a good enough deal. Then they dropped it to 99, and then it was better. But by that time, it was too late. The launch was botched. The fact that the bamboo stuff never happened forever,
yeah.
all that other stuff. This time they seem to have their shit together. And the best part is they came out, they improved it with a beautiful metal frame. I'm not actually convinced they should have made the screen bigger though.
I'm not convinced about that either. I actually felt that the 4.7-inch screen was one of their biggest assets.
I know, and they should have
Um,
gone crazy and done 4.7 1080p.
ooh, yes, that would be awesome.
And then I don't think the camera needed to go up from 10 megapixel. All they needed was OIS.
Yeah.
Remember OIS?
Well, and
And it
and
doesn't
especially
have
with
that.
the iPhone coming out, and again, just going back to what I was saying about the compact, is the iPhone really has very little competition in terms of that size. Like, because there's going to be a lot of people who are like, well, I don't want to go with a bigger iPhone.
Right.
But 4.7 I think is manageable. They wouldn't want to go with a larger screen. So I think there's still a large number of people who are I was going to say stubborn, but not stubborn, but like they are stuck to.
Adamant.
Yeah, there we go. That they are adamant about going with like around 4.7 because that's to a lot of people is the perfect size. 5.2, well, number one, it's exactly the same as every other flagship phone out there, so
Yeah.
there's really nothing different in that sense.
And even the Moto G they announced is 5.0, isn't it? Like, it's big.
Yeah.
The Moto G. Like, I'm like, the Moto G, what was great about it was that it was smaller.
Yeah, so I don't love the trend that the flagships need to keep getting bigger and bigger because we already have a product category for that, right? We have the phablet category, as much as I hate that word.
I
Like
know, right?
that is its
Well,
own beast. So why are they trying to combine the two?
yeah, when you can, I'm actually kind of would argue that the phablet is done with because when you look at the G3 being 5.5, and it's not a phablet, it's their flagship, then
Yeah.
and everything else getting in the 5.2-ish range, that's the size of the original Note, right? I mean, I don't know. I think what is it? The Note 4
Well,
is 5.9 or 5.7? What is it? 5.7, right?
what the new one? Yeah, it's 5.7.
So that's not much bigger than a G3. So
Sure. Well, and maybe this is another potential segue into the 6 Plus, but a lot of people were getting on my case when I reviewed the 6 Plus because I was knocking it for being big. And it's not just, I'm not saying it's big for just because it's a 5.5-inch screen, because you can, as proven by the G3, you can have a large screen without making it actually feel like a large, uncomfortable phone that you can't hold with one hand.
like this.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, this is a fantastic phone. I really love it.
Exactly, and like you compare that next to the Plus, and it's such a difference between the two, in terms of how comfortable it is to hold. Now, I know a lot of people love they love big phones. I use big phones all the time for reviews. I would say my ideal size though is still around 5-inch.
So it's really interesting that you bring that up because at Burning Man for 2 weeks, I had internet access, thankfully, a little more this year because I was more involved, and I use my iPhone to keep, my iPhone. Well, see, I'm already in iPhone 6 mode. I use my G3, my 5.5-inch G3, as my main computing device for checking my email, social media, and all that. And I tell you, it's the most productive Android phone I have ever used, and a big part for its size. When I went back to my Nexus after that, I was like, wow, that screen, it feels small to me.
Yeah.
And it's like, I really was impressed. The G3 is just consistently fast, even though the UI is not pure Android. It doesn't get in your way. It's just productive. And this was just on a Wi-Fi connection. I was just getting so much stuff done.
Yeah.
It was really remarkable.
Well,
So,
and they've mastered the size versus comfort thing, right? Because it doesn't feel like a 5.5-inch phone to me. It feels like
a Nexus, just with a bigger screen. Yeah.
Absolutely. So they nailed it on the head.
Yeah.
And I think more companies need to find ways to do that, to make bigger screens and still be comfortable.
So we have about 10 minutes.
Okay.
I have a lot to talk about the iPhone. My biggest takeaway on the iPhone 6 is awesome. And I haven't touched it yet, so I don't. You reviewed both. So
yeah.
My take is that Apple has finally done what they needed to do. Bigger screens. They've refined every single little aspect of the phone. I have two gripes, and that's one, that that the entry level is not a 32 gigabyte storage option.
Yes.
16 is ridiculous, because honestly, I don't need the storage. So if I buy a 6 Plus, I don't feel right buying a 16. Even though I don't need much storage, I feel like I should be getting a 32. But there's no such thing. So I'm probably going to have to shell out an extra $100 and buy a 64, and then feel like it's vastly too much space for me. Now, that's just me. I understand that there's some people who want their entire music library, and the 128 is a godsend. I get that. Great. But why not start at 32? And then the second gripe is and it's not really a big deal, but it's so un-Apple, is the camera.
Yep.
Like,
yep, absolutely. It sticks out like a sore thumb.
And then when you have it down on the table, it's just like weird.
Yeah, that certainly came to my mind as well when I was playing with the phone. But there's the other issue to me, and I want to see if you agree with this. And I don't know if this is going to show up in the picture or not, but like the stripes at the very top and the very bottom,
they kind of look ugly.
They look really tacky. And they just don't go with the rest of the design. Like, at least, it's symmetrical in that sense, but I don't mind the stripes going across, because it's like the HTC One, right?
Yeah.
Like, it reminds me a lot of that, and I think that looks good. It's just, like, this does not match the rest of the sides, and to me, that's an issue. So, there's just, I don't know, it just does seem very un-Apple, because like, I remember you raved about the 5S with the chamfered edges and the square design. It was very good industrial design.
Yeah, it is.
And
It still is.
I would like to say that the iPhone 6 is still a very good design, but it seems like they missed a couple things here, and that's
it doesn't look very good from the back, and I think it's primarily because if you look at the HTC One M8 and M7 in comparison, I think they did a better job.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I absolutely agree with that.
But that's my only gripes. The rest, I'm absolutely ecstatic about. There's another little gripe, since I'm going to be nitpicky. Why the OIS not on both phones? Is this a cost thing? Because I don't think it's a size thing. So I think it might be a cost thing. Okay,
well, by doing OIS, would they have to make the camera module thicker?
Maybe, but I don't think so. I don't know. Actually, I took apart the iPhone 6 last night, the original. Oh no, the 6 Plus. So I want them to try putting that camera module in the iPhone 6 when they take it apart, and see if it, first of all, is compatible in terms of connection, and if it just fits. Because and maybe it'll even work. Maybe the software will take advantage of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's a crazy idea, but that's what as a person who likes to take things apart, I would try that. I don't know. I'm very excited. For me, I knew before, even the product was announced, when the leaks were happening, I knew that I wanted the 5.5 inch. But at the same time, I'm bummed that you're gonna say the cameras are so good it makes very little difference. But from what I hear, people who know what they're doing, who've used the phone for low light, the one case scenario where iOS matters, it does matter.
Yeah, and it does. I put them side by side.
Right. The fact that Apple put OIS. This was a joke on Twitter earlier. Yep. Hey, Matt. Matt Smith made fun of me for that. Matt. Anyway, the fact that that Apple actually capitulated and put OIS, something we never thought they would put in any of their phones, in the 6 Plus, sorry, to me means that OIS is a valid thing. Right there, Apple did it. We know it's good now, right?
Yeah. So it's a couple things, I think, and they would never say this, I'm sure, but I think one reason is to justify the $100 price tag.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a few other things like bigger battery and nicer display. So there are other things that are helpful to make it worth the $100, but it's just one extra thing to convince people to go with the extra 100. The other thing is they just wanted to sweeten the deal a little bit because perhaps Apple felt that the iPhone 6 was going to be the better selling of the two, and so they wanted to throw in some extra features to make it even more tempting.
The 6 Plus is more popular, right? Like, are they sold out faster?
Well, but I think they also had a more limited supply too.
Okay.
So I don't think that they had quite as many in stock. So it'll be interesting to see when the numbers come out.
I am bummed though that they didn't. You know, part of me kind of thinks that there's a bunch of people out there who really like the 4-inch form factor, and who are kind of getting the shaft this year because they're getting last year's phone, if they don't already own it, at a better deal, which is a great phone. The 5Ss are still a fantastic device, but I mean, this is not the person. This is not the 4-inch size is not the size for me. It's too small. But I can understand some people are going to be vexed and go like, I don't want to go even to 4.7. Like, the whole reason I've always liked my iPhone is it's so small and pocketable and la la la.
Yeah, but I think some people were like that with the 5 when they came out with the 4-inch versus the 3.5, right?
True, but that's not a major change because it was just a height change, not really a width change. Yeah. So this is both, right? I think it'll be interesting to see what they do next year. I wonder if the base model will get replaced with something like, I don't know. We'll see.
It does make me wonder if they're going to go with 3 instead, or like last year they had the 5S and the 5C, so perhaps they're going to come out with like an iPhone 6 with a 4-inch screen. I don't know.
iPhone 7 minus. They would never use it.
I will say though, like when comparing the 5S to the 6, the round design definitely helps in this case.
Holding it for sure.
I think it's harmful for the 6 Plus, the rounded design is, because it's harder to grip. Like when you're holding onto it, you feel like you're grasping on for dear life, and then the sharp corner or sharp edges. No, not sharp, but you know what I mean. Like they're so round that they feel sharp, like when you're holding onto them.
I know what you mean.
But like comparing it with the Note 3 was just about as wide, a little bit wider, and I actually felt like it was easier to hold. I wasn't going to drop it.
Right.
It's also a little bit slippery. But that said, I think it works great on a 4.7-inch device because that smaller size, just combined with all the contours of the round. Like, for example, my fingers go around the side a lot easier than they do on the 6 Plus. And so for me, I don't feel like I'm going to drop it. I feel it's still a very good, natural feel in my hand. So I think a lot of people who might be hesitant at first because of the larger size, they're going to get the 4.7 and think, you know what, this actually isn't that much worse than I thought it was going to be.
Right.
Like the difference between the feel will not be as big as people are expecting.
And it's also thinner, so it still fits in your pocket just fine.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. No, I mean, just I was nitpicking. I want to make it clear that I think Apple nailed it this year. Like overall, you cannot go wrong with either of these phones. Everybody agrees. I mean, there are so many things like the display on. I haven't seen it. Again, I'm just repeating what I've read, and I trust these people that are friends like you who reviewed it. And everybody rants and raves about the displays, especially the 6 Plus. And I'm very interested in a technical point of view how. So Gruber wrote about this. The resolution of the 6 Plus is a very interesting thing. They actually are rendering the entire UI 3 times size instead of 2 times, and at a resolution like 2200 by 1000, something like a bit more than 1100 or something. Yeah. But then they're scaling it down in real time to a 1920 by 1080 display, which is interesting, and it apparently looks fantastic. What a kind of a ballsy thing to do, because we were all kind of wondering how they do that. Whereas the 6, they're actually scaling twice, and they're basically keeping the DPI a little lower than the 6 Plus, and but there's no trickery, there's no scaling going on. Very interesting approach, because from a developer perspective, that makes it a lot easier to deal with. And so, kudos for Apple to pull that one off. That to me is kind of a little technical sidebar that I was like, wow, interesting and kind of crazy at the same time. And I don't know. I think I can't wait to get. I've asked Apple for reviewing it. I'm hoping to get one. If I cannot get one, I'll buy one. Probably a 6 Plus. It's going to be a tough call between the 16 and the 64 because I don't really need that much storage, but also resale value matters, right? Because I'm going to buy it unlocked. So what's $100 more? They're expensive unlocked though. Wow. Like the 128 gigabyte 6 Plus is like $929 or something.
Yeah, it does not surprise me. Probably $950. I mean, that's usually what it is. The highest model is always.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and it's even more now because the 6 Plus is an extra $100. So yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I might splurge. And then other than that, I don't know. iOS 8. You wrote it. Kudos, by the way, for writing an entire review on iOS 8. I was like, wow. He went there. Like, it
was a long
week,
let me tell you.
The software reviews are hard to write. Like I know that I can do the hardware, but the software, oh my god. So kudos for you pulling that one off.
This is why my brain is fried right now. It's just because like the whole week, that's all I did was just.
And didn't you go to Uplink yesterday?
Yeah, I went to Uplink yesterday. I went to the T-Mobile event the day after the Apple event. And
yeah. I was in Vegas watching it. T-Mobile set up a room for the media.
They did?
And, yeah, it was fantastic. We had a good time. I was sitting with Emily, and we just had a good. I mean, I had to go unfortunately halfway through because I had a meeting to go to, but it was really lovely to be with a bunch of other journalists and kind of like make enjoy the quips of John Ledger, particularly the Apple Fire Sale, the Amazon Fire Sale phone. Oh my God, I laughed so hard. That was great.
How many of those jokes do you think he's written down like a stand-up comedian does?
I wonder if he's got writers. I've always kind of been curious about that, and so I don't know. I think it's on point. It was great. He was funny.
Yeah.
It was honestly the most exciting event. Like Wi-Fi calling. How 2007 is that?
Yeah, the go-go texting.
But the go-go stuff, I think the go-go stuff, I can't wait to try that out next time. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So kudos to T-Mobile to keep it up and keep going in their crazy direction.
Yep.
Yeah. I think, what?
Can I ask one more question? Because I know we got to wrap up here.
Yeah, we should probably wrap up, but go for it.
But I want to ask you your take on the one-handed mode, the reachability mode.
Oh, yeah.
Because for me, guys, like it's a neat idea. It's kind of cumbersome to use.
I obviously haven't tried it, but as soon as I do, I'll let you know. The idea seems sound. I mean, you're holding the phone, you double tap the home button, you can hopefully reach everything. But I don't know. I've been using my phones two-handed for a really long time, and when I do on one hand, like basically as soon as the keyboard comes up, I'm two-handed, and very rarely do I use these big phones one-handed. I mean, I try, but I always feel like I'm going to drop them. And I fancy myself as a person who doesn't drop phones, so
Well, I mean, it happens every once in a while. But,
it happens. I dropped my Nexus 5 recently onto concrete, polished concrete, and nothing bad happened. Not even a scratch because it's polished concrete, so it's very very smooth.
Oh, okay.
And I really thought for sure that the glass was gonna shatter, or and it's also old. Like I have so many little microfracture cracks along the plastic edges of my Nexus 5.
Yeah.
From sitting on it probably, but it's been super resilient at all the abuse I've thrown at it, and I can only say good things about my Nexus 5. So just wanted to point that out there.
Yeah. So we'll see about the about your experience with the
I'll
6
let you
Plus.
know. I'm really looking forward to getting my hands. So the Moto X should be coming my way. I'm hoping to get an iPhone 6 Plus either via review unit or as a purchase. I'm finally looks like I might be getting an OnePlus One without having to pay for it.
Woohoo!
And then I'm going to try to ping T-Mobile PR probably to get a Z3. And then what else is on my radar? Some Huawei devices I might be able to get thanks to our good friend Taylor, who works there now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to keep it interesting for the readers and viewers. I know I haven't posted much in a while. I have basically 2 reviews in the pipe to edit. One is the Desire 816 that I showed you that I used extensively over the summer, and I have a video review for you guys coming soon. And I actually have a video review of the Yoda phone, the original, not the Yoda phone 2. I've had one for a while. I've on and off used it, and I recorded the video, edited it, and then I just never did anything with it. I just need to upload it and get my shit together. Yeah.
Come on, Miriam.
So, yeah, and then of course there's a Butterfly 2 coming after that. So I don't think I'm going to bother reviewing the Nokia Lumia 530 simply because it's just too low end for me to really bother. I can't recommend it because of the lack of autofocus. I'd say start with a 630 if you really need to buy a Lumia. My advice is just save the money and buy a better Lumia. Like the 830 looks really good, and the 930 is certainly a solid phone. So, and the Icon. The 1520, I guess. 1520. There's rumors of a 1525 for T-Mobile. I don't know what that's about, but hey.
Yeah, it's kind of late, but sure, why not?
Well, 6-inch. Every time I grab my 1520, I feel it's too big, right? Like it's just a little too gargantuan. So I'm not sure I'm ready for that. But some people love it,
Well, and how I was saying that the 6 Plus, you got the sides that are so curved that they almost feel sharp. Well, it's even worse on the 1520, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, it's like you could slice bread with that thing.
Right, and it's even wider, so you're even gripping it even tighter.
So another quick update before we go is that I, as you know, have been getting some tablets/laptops to play with, and I'm not going to really review them. It's really hard to do a video review of a laptop because I don't know, unless not the way I do them, where I sit down and just do a one take, with a few edits here and there. But over the last year, if you have questions, you guys can ask. I've played with the original Chromebook 11 or whatever it's called from HP, which has since been replaced. That was last fall. Then I got a Lumia 20. No, not Lumia. Is it Lumia? Yeah, it is Lumia 2520, the tablet phone, the tablet laptop
the
thing.
Yep.
Windows RT thing, which Windows RT just doesn't do it for me. And then after that, I got the most recent thing I got is a Surface Pro 3, and I really like it. It's really nice. I still don't like Windows, but I like the hardware a lot. There was another laptop I got somewhere along the way in there, but I can't remember what it was now. Anyway, I'll keep you posted on these in tweets and other things, but I don't know if I can really review these. It's not really. I don't really have the time. But Surface 3, finally, in the house. Interesting, very interesting. I think they finally did it mostly right this time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you played with it?
Not really. Not yet.
Yeah, try to get one. It's kind of interesting. Yeah. Anyway, we should wrap it up. Do you want to pimp yourself? Where you are on Twitter, on G+, on Facebook, and who, everybody knows you are at Engadget, but please tell them as well. Tell them.
Well, my Twitter handle is Phone Wisdom, all one word, and let's see, Google+, I think you could just do Brad Mullen, I think is all you have to do, but but regardless, you could just go out to Miriam's Google+, and you'll find the link to me there. So, yeah. So that's about my social reach right there.
And again, you can read and get Brad's awesome work at Engadget.com. Most recently, the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus review, as well as a completely dedicated iOS 8 review, which I highly, highly recommend you read. These are really awesome.
Yeah, you just make sure you reserve a couple hours. You're going to have to set some time aside for these ones.
It is pretty seriously hardcore. And what was I gonna say? You can find me at tnkgrl, tnkgrl on Twitter, and on Google Plus, of course, and on Facebook if you can find me by my legal name. And my blog is tnkgrl.com, tnkgrl.com. Hopefully, in about a month, we'll have another podcast with another awesome guest and talk about all the new things. Expect a few videos to come your way in that interim. I'll have a couple of interesting reviews for you, hopefully, and we'll go from there. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Tune in next time. I'm tnkgrl. This is Brad. Cheers. Bye, everybody.
Bye.